The words hung in the air like poison. Why don't you just disappear? My daughter-in-law's face twisted with anger, her finger pointing at the door. My son, my only child, stood beside her, arms crossed, nodding in silent agreement, and said, "We'd be better off without you." Has a family conflict transformed your life? Subscribe and share this story and your own experience in the comments. Your journey might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. I didn't cry, not then. I simply gathered my purse and what remained of my dignity, then walked out the door of the home I'd helped them buy, the home where I'd babysat their children countless weekends, the home where I'd brought soup when they were sick and champagne when they were celebrating. The spring air felt cold against my face as I drove away, 73 years old, and being told I was unwanted, disposable. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. The familiar route home blurred through tears I refused to acknowledge. Traffic lights, stop signs, the old oak tree at the corner of Elm, all passed in a haze as my mind replayed those final moments on an endless loop. We'd be better off without you. Had they been thinking it all along? Every Sunday dinner, every birthday celebration, every Christmas morning, had they been wishing I would just vanish? I pulled into my driveway, the Victorian on Maple Street that had been in my family for generations, the house where I'd raised David after his father died, the house they expected to inherit someday. The porch light I'd left on that morning welcomed me back, unaware that the woman returning was not the same one who had left. Inside, I moved through familiar rooms that suddenly felt foreign. Family photos lined the hallway, David's graduation, the twins' christening, Margaret and David's wedding. I'd been essential then, needed. When had that changed? The silence pressed against my ears. No grandchildren's laughter, no family dinner to plan, just me and the ticking grandfather clock in the hallway, counting down minutes in an unwanted life. We'd been close once, David and I. After losing his father when he was 12, we'd formed a team. I'd attended every baseball game, helped with every science project, stayed up late discussing his college applications. I'd been his confidant, his cheerleader, his safe harbor. Then came Margaret, smart, ambitious Margaret, with her precise ideas about family dynamics and boundaries. I tried to welcome her, to adjust to her ways, perhaps not well enough. The subtle corrections began: how I folded the children's clothes, the snacks I offered, the advice I gave, small criticisms that accumulated like snowflakes until I found myself buried beneath an avalanche of disapproval. Still, we'd maintain the appearance of harmony. Sunday dinners, holiday gatherings, birthday celebrations. I'd learned to ask before bringing dishes, to check before buying gifts for the children. I'd reduced my visits from 3 times weekly to once. I'd swallowed suggestions about the twins' education, their extracurricular activities, their bedtimes. I thought I'd done enough. Probably I was wrong. It started with a casserole dish, such a small thing, really. My grandmother's hand-painted ceramic, blue flowers dancing around the edges. Margaret had borrowed it months ago for some dinner party with her colleagues. I needed it for the church potluck and mentioned it while visiting. "Oh, I still have it somewhere," she said, not looking up from her laptop. "I'll find it eventually." "The potluck is tomorrow," I explained, trying to keep my voice light. "Pastor William specifically requested my sweet potato casserole." Margaret sighed, the sound sharp with irritation. "I'm in the middle of a work project, Helen. I can't drop everything to hunt for a dish." "I understand you're busy, dear. Maybe you could just point me to where it might be, and I could look." She snapped her laptop closed. "This is exactly the problem. You're always keeping tabs on things, counting what you've loaned us, tracking what we owe you." "That's not fair," I said, genuinely surprised. "It's just a casserole dish." "It's never just a casserole dish with you. It's comments about how the twins need haircuts, or how we should enroll them in piano lessons, or how the pantry would be more efficient if we organized it differently. I was only trying to help when I reorganized." "We didn't ask for help." Her voice rose, color flooding her cheeks. "You're suffocating us with your constant presence, your constant opinions, your constant everything." I'd only been visiting once a week, down from the 3 times I used to come, down from the daily visits when the twins were newborns, and Margaret was overwhelmed. I thought I was respecting their boundaries. Where is this coming from? I asked, my throat tightening. If I've overstepped. Overstepped? She laughed, a harsh sound I'd never heard from her before. You bulldoze. You undermine us as parents. Remember Christmas? The educational tablet we specifically told you we were getting the twins? And what did you do? Bought the exact same thing. I didn't know. Because you didn't ask. You never ask. You just decide you know better. The front door opened and David walked in, home early from work. He took in the scene, his wife standing rigid with anger, me perched on the edge of the sofa, confusion and hurt surely written across my face. What's going on? He asked, setting down his briefcase. Margaret turned to him. Your mother is upset about her casserole dish. It's not about the dish, I protested. Margaret is saying I'm suffocating you all, that I'm undermining you as parents. I looked to my son, expecting him to mediate, to smooth things over as he usually did. Instead, he sighed and ran a hand through his hair. A gesture so like his father, it made my heart ache. Mom, we've been meaning to talk to you about this, he said, his voice gentle but firm. You do have a tendency to overstep. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. My son, my David, the boy I'd raised alone after his father's heart attack, the child I'd sacrificed for, worked 2 jobs for, postponed dreams for. Overstep, I whispered. I thought I was helping. We don't need your help, Margaret said. Not the way you give it. Not with the strings attached. There are no strings. Really? She interrupted. So the comments about how much the house must be worth now, the hints about college funds for the twins, the reminders about how the Victorian has been in your family for generations, those aren't strings? Mom, David said, moving to stand beside his wife, you need to respect our boundaries. We're adults, we're parents, we make our own decisions. I know that, I said, my voice small. Do you? Margaret challenged. Because it feels like you're always waiting for us to fail so you can swoop in and fix things, like you don't trust us. That's not true. I trust you completely. Then why can't you just let us live our lives without constant input? Without rearranging our pantry or buying duplicate gifts or questioning our parenting choices, I tried explaining, defending myself. The pantry had been a surprise while they were on vacation. The tablet was because I'd seen how educational it was. The haircut comments were because the twins kept pushing hair from their eyes. But they weren't listening. Their minds were made up. I think, David said finally, we all need some space. Space, I repeated, the word hollow. Yes, Margaret agreed. Space, to be a family without feeling monitored. That's when she said those words, the ones that would change everything. We'd be better off without you. And my son, my only child, nodded. The drive home passed in a blur. The Victorian loomed dark and empty, no one waiting for my return. I moved through rooms filled with memories, touching photographs, running fingers over furniture that had witnessed a lifetime of joy and sorrow. In the kitchen, I opened cupboards filled with serving dishes for family gatherings that might never happen again. The refrigerator held leftovers from Sunday's dinner. The last one, perhaps. I didn't eat, couldn't. Instead, I sat in my reading chair by the window, watching darkness claim the neighborhood. Lights flickered on in surrounding homes, families gathering for dinner, children being bathed and put to bed, normal life continuing while mine had shattered. My phone remained silent. No apologetic text from David, no call from the twins asking when I'd visit next, no indication that my absence was even noticed. The grandfather clock struck 9, then 10, then midnight. I hadn't moved, hadn't cried, hadn't processed the seismic shift in my world. We'd be better off without you. The words echoed in the empty house, in the empty spaces of my heart. Had I truly been so blind, so overbearing, so unwelcome? Or had they been so ungrateful, so entitled, so quick to discard decades of love and sacrifice? As night deepened, something hardened inside me, a resolve I hadn't felt since being widowed at 42 with a 12-year-old to raise alone, a determination that had carried me through grief and single parenthood and rebuilding a life. They wanted me to disappear. Perhaps it was time I did exactly that. I didn't call them. Pride, perhaps, or something darker growing inside me. Days passed, then weeks. I moved through my routines like a ghost in my own life, watering plants, collecting mail, attending church alone, making excuses for my family's absence. The twins have swimming lessons, I'd say, or David's working on a big project. The lies tasted bitter. Mrs. Abernathy from the garden club asked twice about Sunday dinners. "We miss seeing your family," she said, arranging daffodils for the altar. I smiled and changed the subject. At night, memories ambushed me. David's first steps across this very living room floor, teaching him to read in the window seat upstairs. His teenage years, the house filled with the thunderous sounds of his rock band practicing in the basement, the graduation party in the backyard, so many proud faces celebrating his acceptance to state. Had I failed him somehow? Been too generous or not generous enough? Loved too fiercely or not fiercely enough? I found myself wandering from room to room, touching door frames where we'd marked his height with pencil lines, opening closets still holding board games we'd played on rainy afternoons, standing in his old bedroom, now a guest room, but still, somehow holding the echo of a child's laughter. 3 days after our fight, I opened the hall closet and found myself staring at a stack of photo albums. I pulled one out, David's baby book, his tiny footprint in ink, the hospital bracelet, first smile, first tooth, first day of school. I documented everything, treasured every milestone. Now those memories felt like accusations. Had my love been too consuming, my pride too obvious, my expectations too high? I closed the album and noticed the folder beside it, my will. The document naming David as sole heir to the Victorian on Maple Street, the house worth nearly $1 million in today's market, the house they'd been counting on. Something shifted inside me, a realization cold and clear as winter sunlight. Was this what I represented to them now? Not mother, not grandmother, but future inheritance, a financial safety net, the promise of eventual wealth? The thought crystallized as I stood there, the will in my hands. All those comments Margaret had thrown at me about the house's value, about college funds, about family legacy, suddenly realigned in my mind. They were waiting for me to die, not actively wishing for it, perhaps, but planning around it, counting on it, building their future on the foundation of my eventual absence. I called my attorney the next morning. Richard Harmon had handled my affairs for decades. He'd drawn up the will after James died, helped with David's college trust fund, advised me on investments. His office still had the same leather chairs, the same smell of lemon polish and old books. "Helen," he said warmly, rising to greet me, "what a pleasant surprise. How are David and the family?" "That's partly why I'm here," I said, settling into the familiar chair. "You want to make some changes to your will?" he asked, reaching for my file. "To my life," I corrected. "Starting with the house, I want to sell it." His hand paused midair. "The Victorian, but you've always been adamant about keeping it in the family." "Things change," I said simply. "Have you discussed this with David? The house has been in your will as his inheritance for years." "I'm aware." Richard studied me over his reading glasses. "Helen, forgive me for asking, but is everything all right? This seems sudden." I considered how much to share. Richard wasn't just my attorney, he'd been James's friend. He'd watched David grow up. "David and I have had a disagreement," I said carefully. "It's made me reconsider many things." "I see," he said, though he clearly didn't. "And selling the family home is your response to this disagreement?" Put that way, it sounded petty, reactionary. Was I being vindictive, using the house as punishment? "It's more complicated than that," I said. "I've realized I've been living my life around other people's expectations, making decisions based on what I thought I should do, not what I want to do." "And what do you want, Helen?" The question caught me off guard. What did I want? After decades of putting others first, my husband, my son, my grandchildren, what did I want for myself? "I want," my voice faltered, "I want to live before I die." Richard's expression softened. "The house has been your home for over 50 years. It's been my anchor," I corrected. "Maybe now it's my chain." We talked for nearly 2 hours about market values and capital gains, about investment options and living trusts, about the practical realities of liquidating my largest asset. Find me a cash buyer, I told him finally. Someone who can close quickly. Are you absolutely certain? He asked. This is a significant decision. Was I certain? The question followed me home, haunted me through sleepless nights. Was I overreacting? Would I regret this irrevocable step? I stood in David's old room, remembering the night terrors that had sent me rushing to his bedside, the chicken pox I'd nursed him through, the heartbreak of his first girlfriend, leaving him for the captain of the debate team. In the kitchen, I recalled teaching him to make his father's pancake recipe. In the dining room, homework sessions and science projects spread across the table. In the living room, Christmas mornings and birthday celebrations. Every corner held memories. Every floorboard had witnessed our lives unfolding. But memories weren't the same as a future. We'd be better off without you. The words still stung, still echoed in empty rooms. If I was honest with myself, things had been changing for years. David's visits becoming shorter, more obligatory, conversations growing more superficial, my role diminishing from mother to occasional babysitter to what? A background character in their story. I'd been holding on to a version of family that perhaps no longer existed, clinging to traditions and expectations while they moved forward without me. The house had become a museum of what once was, not what could be. One week after meeting with Richard, I received a call. A developer was interested, all cash, quick closing, no contingencies. They'll likely tear it down, Richard warned, build something modern. The thought should have horrified me. Instead, I felt a strange lightness. Let them build something new, I said. Let the past make way for the future. Tell them I accept. Helen, are you absolutely... I'm sure, I interrupted, my voice steadier than I'd felt in years. It's time. That night, I walked through each room, saying goodbye, not to the house itself, but to the woman I'd been within these walls. Wife, mother, widow, grandmother, roles that had defined me, confined me, sustained me. Now, I would define myself. The decision once made felt right. Not easy, but right. Like setting down a heavy burden I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. The burden of expectations, theirs and my own. The weight of a legacy I'd been preserving for people who didn't value it, or me. I slept soundly that night for the first time since the argument. In my dreams, I stood on an unknown shore, waves washing away footprints behind me, the horizon wide open ahead. The house sold in 2 weeks to a developer with cash and no questions. I signed the papers on a Tuesday morning, feeling unexpectedly light. The closing attorney looked surprised. Most people get emotional, she said. I did my crying already, I replied with a smile. The check, unreal in its size, landed in my account. Richard had already booked meetings with financial advisors and real estate agents. My once empty calendar filled overnight. I gave myself 3 weeks to pack, a lifetime in boxes. I started with the easy rooms, laundry, hall closets, guest bath, keep, donate, discard. It was almost meditative. Then came the harder spaces, David's childhood room, the master bedroom, the living room filled with photographs. In the attic, I found David's tiny baseball glove, old school ribbons, handmade Mother's Day cards, world's best mom, written in crayon. Was I? Or, as Margaret said, was I controlling, suffocating? Maybe both. Maybe love and control blurred like watercolors left in the rain. In the master closet, James's sweaters still hung, untouched, for nearly 3 decades. Their scent had faded, but not their shape. I folded them slowly. Time to let go. The china from my grandmother's hutch, used for every holiday, was wrapped piece by piece. I labeled the boxes Family Collection, not knowing if family dinners were behind me now. The photos were the hardest. David from grade school to graduation. Us as a family, then just the 2 of us, then David and Margaret, then the 4 of them with the twins. I couldn't take them all. I kept some, digitized the rest. As the house emptied, it seemed to grow. Every step echoed louder, every room a reminder. Faded outlines on the floor marked where the furniture had been, the ghosts of a life once full. Meanwhile, my new life was taking shape through phone calls and meetings. I want to set up college funds for my grandchildren, I told the financial advisor. Irrevocable trusts they can access at 18, regardless of family circumstances. He nodded, making notes. And the remainder of the proceeds? I'd like to donate a significant portion to Children's Hospital, I said, the pediatric cancer wing. James had been a pediatrician, he would have approved. That's very generous, the advisor commented. And for yourself? For myself. Such a novel concept. I want to buy a small place near the beach, I said, something manageable but beautiful, and I want to invest the rest to provide income for travel. Travel, he asked. Yes, I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. I've always wanted to see Paris and Rome and Tokyo. He smiled. We can certainly make that happen. The real estate agent showed me 5 properties before I found it. A 2-bedroom condo in a small building overlooking the ocean. Floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room framed the endless blue of sea and sky. A small balcony just large enough for morning coffee and sunset cocktails. Modern appliances in a kitchen designed for simplicity rather than large family gatherings. It's perfect, I said, watching waves break against the shore. Are you sure? The agent asked. It's quite a change from your Victorian. That's exactly why it's perfect. I made an offer that afternoon. By the following week, it was mine. The movers came on a Thursday. I stood in the empty Victorian one last time, listening to the familiar creaks and sighs of the old house. In the entryway, I ran my fingers along the doorframe with its pencil marks, tracking David's growth. Goodbye, I whispered, not to the house, but to the woman who had lived here, the woman defined by her roles as wife, mother, grandmother, the woman who had measured her worth by her usefulness to others. I closed the door without looking back. The condo welcomed me with blank walls and bare floors, a canvas awaiting my imprint. I arranged my carefully curated belongings, each one chosen with intention rather than habit. The family photo albums went on a dedicated shelf, James's pocket watch on the bedside table, my grandmother's rocking chair by the window overlooking the ocean. Everything else was new, a sleek sofa in seafoam green, artwork featuring coastal landscapes, bedding in shades of blue and white, a dining table sized for 4, not the 8-person behemoth I'd left behind. That first night, I sat on my balcony watching stars appear over the water. The rhythmic sound of waves replaced the familiar ticking of the grandfather clock. Salt air filled my lungs instead of the scent of lemon polish and old wood. I felt simultaneously untethered and grounded, free from expectations yet anchored in my own choices. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a disorienting moment, I couldn't remember where I was. Then the sound of seagulls and the distant crash of waves oriented me. My new life, my choice. I made coffee and carried it to the balcony, watching early morning joggers on the beach below. An older couple walked hand in hand along the shoreline. A young mother chased a toddler through shallow waves. My phone remained silent. No calls from David wondering about my absence, no texts from Margaret about Sunday dinner, no FaceTime requests from the twins showing me their latest artwork. Did they even know I'd moved? That I'd sold the house they expected to inherit? That I'd transformed my life entirely? They would discover it eventually. But for now, this silence was part of my transformation too, learning to exist without their validation, without being needed, without measuring my days by their presence or absence. I opened my laptop and booked a cruise to Alaska for the following month, then European flights for the fall. I researched photography classes at the local community center and signed up for a beach yoga group that met at sunrise. That afternoon, I walked barefoot along the shore, letting waves wash over my feet. The water was cold, shocking, like this new life, bracing, unfamiliar, exhilarating. A child ran past, chasing a seagull, her laughter carried on the wind. I thought of the twins, a sharp pang of loss amid my newfound freedom. Would they visit me here someday, build sandcastles where I now walked? Or would this place remain separate from my old life, a sanctuary of self-discovery? I didn't know, couldn't know. For the first time in decades, my future wasn't defined by others' needs or expectations. It stretched before me, unwritten, That night, I fell asleep to the sound of waves, dreaming not of the past, but of possibilities. 1 month passed without a word from my family. No calls, no texts, no visits from the grandchildren. I'd become a ghost in their lives. My days found new rhythms: morning coffee on the balcony, watching sunrise over the Atlantic, beach walks, collecting shells, afternoons with postponed novels or exploring coastal shops, evenings with wine as the sky transformed from blue to indigo. I made excuses to friends about my family's absence, smiled, and pretended everything was fine while silence echoed inside me. The twins' birthday passed, unmarked. Cards I'd bought remained unsent on my desk, a small monument to our growing distance. Had they already forgotten me? Do children adapt so quickly to absence? In my building, I met neighbors who became friends. Eleanor from 3B invited me to weekly bridge games. The Sullivans hosted Friday cocktails. Dr. Patel recommended the best walking paths. "You're new here?" Eleanor asked during bridge. "New to everything," I replied. "New home, new lifestyle, new independence." She nodded. Reinvention. I did the same after Harold died. Sold our Connecticut house, moved here, learned paddleboarding at 68. Paddleboard? I laughed, imagining myself balancing on water. Why not? That's my philosophy now. Try everything at least once. I adopted her outlook, accepting invitations I'd once declined: sunset cruises, pottery classes, day trips to wildlife sanctuaries. My calendar filled with self-chosen activities. Yet the family-shaped void remained unfillable. Some mornings I reached for my phone, certain today they'd call. Some nights I composed messages never sent. Pride and hurt formed an impassable barrier. My Alaska cruise approached. I bought luggage, walking shoes, a proper camera. At the travel agency's preparation session, a woman asked, "Will you be traveling alone?" "Yes," I said, the words still unfamiliar. "How brave," she replied, her tone suggesting otherwise. I could never. Once I would have agreed. Now, it felt like necessary evolution. Doubt still crept in. Was I overreacting? Should I reach out first? I drove past their house one afternoon, the twins' bicycles on the lawn, David's car in the driveway, Margaret's flower beds blooming with summer color, life continuing without me. I didn't stop, drove home with tears blurring the highway. That evening, I booked the expensive Northern Lights excursion I would have once deemed too indulgent. Each act of independence strengthened my resolve, yet the twins' absence remained an ache. I missed their sticky hugs, their endless questions, their unfiltered observations. Had I lost them in my bid for self-respect? Sunday mornings were hardest. Family brunch time stretched empty before me. I tried new churches, but found myself distracted, wondering if anyone at our old congregation noticed my absence. I disappeared just as they'd wanted. The question haunting me was whether I could ever reappear, or if I even wanted to. Then my phone exploded. 21 missed calls in the span of 2 hours, 15 from David, 6 from Margaret. Voicemails, each more frantic than the last. "Mom, please call us." "What have you done?" "We need to talk, Mom. This is important. Please pick up." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. After weeks of silence, this sudden urgency was jarring. My finger hovered over the callback button. Part of me wanted to ignore them, to let them feel a fraction of the abandonment I'd experienced, but another part, the mother in me, couldn't sustain the cruelty. I called. David answered on the first ring. "Mom?" His voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "What the hell is going on? Mrs. Peterson called to say there's a construction crew at the house." "Your house." "Not my house anymore," I said calmly. "I sold it." Silence. Then, "You what?" "I sold the house, David. The papers were finalized 3 weeks ago. But that's our inheritance. That's the kids' future college fund, our retirement safety net." His voice rose with each sentence. "You can't just sell it without talking to us." "Actually, I can. It was my house." "Mom, this isn't like you. What's gotten into you?" What had gotten into me? Self-respect, perhaps, or the realization that I'd spent decades being taken for granted. You told me to disappear, I reminded him. So I made some changes. We didn't mean it literally, it was just an argument. It didn't feel that way to me. I heard Margaret in the background asking questions. Then she was on the phone. Helen, please tell me this is some kind of mistake, she said, her voice trembling. The house has been in your family for generations. Yes, it has, and now it's not. What about the children? Their inheritance? I've set up college funds for each of them, I said. They'll receive the money when they turn 18, regardless of our relationship. That part was never in question. More silence, then, can we meet? Please? We need to talk about this face to face. I agreed to coffee the next day. A public place seemed safer somehow. They were already at the cafe when I arrived, both looking like they hadn't slept. My son stood as I approached, eyeing me with a mix of confusion and frustration. You look different, he said. I had cut my hair short, wore linen pants and a silk blouse, colors I never used to wear. I am different, I replied, taking a seat. Margaret's gaze was cautious. Where are you living? We went by the house. The new owner said you moved out weeks ago. I bought a condo near the beach. The beach? David blinked. You always said you hated sand. Maybe I said that. Or maybe I just got used to choosing what others preferred. A heavy silence fell over us, at odds with the normal cafe buzz around us. Why? David finally asked. Why would you do this? I stirred my coffee slowly. Do you remember what you both said to me? He looked down. We were angry. Some words can't be unsaid, I said quietly. Some wounds don't heal just because time passes. So this is punishment? Margaret snapped. You sold our inheritance to punish us? It wasn't yours yet, I reminded her. And this isn't punishment, it's consequence. David looked stunned. Consequence? For years I've been the safety net. The free babysitter, the financial backup, the promise of inheritance. And you took it for granted. They tried to respond, but I raised a hand. When you told me to disappear, something in me did, but something else woke up. I realized I've spent my life planning your future instead of living my present. So you sold the house? David asked, voice tight. I kept what mattered, photo albums, heirlooms. But yes, I sold it. And I used the money to finally live. What does that mean? Margaret asked. I showed them photos of my condo, told them about my donation to the children's hospital, my investment plans, my cruise to Alaska. After that, maybe Europe. They exchanged a glance, struggling to reconcile this woman with the one they used to rely on without question. What about us? My son finally asked. What about your grandchildren? The question hit its mark. My carefully constructed composure wavered. I've missed them terribly, I admitted. But you made it clear you wanted space from me. We meant less frequent visits, not complete disappearance, Margaret exclaimed. The twins keep asking where you are. We've been telling them you're not feeling well. So you've been lying to them, I observed. What were we supposed to say? David demanded. That we had a fight and you decided to sell their inheritance and move away without a word? You could have called, I pointed out. Any time in the past 6 weeks, you could have called. So could you, he countered. We stared at each other, the impasse stretching between us. I needed to find out who I am without you, I said finally, without being defined by my role in your lives. And who is that? David asked, his tone softening slightly. I'm still discovering that. Margaret leaned forward, her expression earnest. Helen, we never meant for this to happen. Yes, we were frustrated. Yes, we said things we shouldn't have. But we never wanted to lose you. Didn't you? I asked quietly. Or did you just not want to lose what I represent? Free childcare, financial security, the promise of inheritance? Her face flushed. That's not fair, isn't it? You've made it clear that my presence is suffocating, that my help is interference, that my love is controlling. Mom, David interjected, we were angry, but we never stopped loving you. Love without respect isn't enough, I said. Not anymore. The words hung between us, heavy with truth. So, what now? He asked. You've sold the house, you've moved away, you've made your point. What happens to our family? I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, this person I'd loved more than my own life. I saw the boy he'd been and the father he'd become. I saw James in the set of his jaw, the shape of his hands. I saw myself in his stubbornness, his sense of justice. That, I said softly, is up to all of us. The conversation that followed was difficult. Painful truths emerged, long suppressed feelings finally finding voice. David stared into his coffee, now cold and forgotten. We had been counting on the house, he admitted, the words seeming to cost him. Not in a mercenary way, but it was part of our long-term financial planning. Your financial planning included my death, I observed. He winced. That sounds terrible when you put it that way. How else should I put it? As family legacy, Margaret interjected, as generational wealth, as continuity. And if I'd needed to sell it to pay for medical care or decided to donate it to charity, would you have been this upset? They exchanged glances, the answer clear in their silence. That's what I thought, I said. My value to you has become what I can provide, not who I am. That's not true, David protested, but his eyes slid away from mine. When was the last time you called just to talk? Not to ask for babysitting, or to discuss holiday plans, or to mention some repair the house needed. He couldn't answer. I love you both, I continued. I love the twins more than I can express. But love shouldn't be transactional. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. I felt judged by you from the beginning, she confessed. Like nothing I did as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter-in-law was ever quite good enough. The accusation stung. I never meant to make you feel that way. But you did. Your suggestions about the children's education, your helpful tips about housekeeping, the way you'd rearrange things when you visited, like my way of organizing wasn't valid. The pantry, I murmured, remembering. Yes, the pantry. I came home from our weekend away to find everything moved. Do you know how that felt? Like my home wasn't really mine, like my choices weren't respected. I hadn't considered it that way. In my mind, I'd been helping, lightening their load. In hers, I'd been undermining, controlling. And the Christmas present, David added. The tablet we specifically said we were getting the twins. I didn't know. Because you didn't ask, Margaret interrupted. You just decided your way was better. The truth of it settled uncomfortably. Had I been so certain of my rightness that I'd stopped listening, stopped seeing them as adults with their own valid approaches? I've made mistakes, I acknowledged. I've overstepped boundaries I didn't recognize existed. And we've been conflict avoidant, David said. Instead of addressing issues directly, we let resentment build until that day. We sat with these admissions, the air between us shifting from accusation to something more complex. Recognition, perhaps, the first step toward understanding. The twins miss you, Margaret said after a while. They don't understand why you stopped coming around. What did you tell them? That you needed some time alone, that grown-ups sometimes need space. I nodded, appreciating that they hadn't vilified me to the children. They made you cards, David added. They're in the car. We weren't sure if you'd want to see us today. Something cracked inside me. Of course I want to see them. Even after everything, they're innocent in this. My issues with you two have nothing to do with my love for them. Margaret studied me. You've really changed, haven't you? It's not just the hair and clothes. I've had to rediscover who I am when I'm not defined by my relationship to others. It's been illuminating. And who are you? David asked, echoing his earlier question, but with genuine curiosity now. I'm still figuring that out, but I know I'm someone who deserves respect, who has dreams beyond being a grandmother, who wants to see the world before it's too late. The cruise, he remembered. Alaska next month and Europe in the fall. Alone? Yes. He looked troubled by this. Isn't that lonely? Being surrounded by family and feeling invisible is lonely, I corrected. This is solitude with purpose. Another difficult truth. Absorbed. Can we start over? Margaret asked hesitantly. Not with the house, I understand that's done, but with our relationship. I'd like that, I said. But things will be different now. Different how? David asked. I won't be available at a moment's notice for babysitting. I won't rearrange my plans to accommodate yours. I won't offer advice unless asked. And we need to be more direct about our boundaries, Margaret added, instead of letting resentment build. And I need to remember you're my mother, not just the twins' grandmother, David said quietly, that you have value beyond what you provide for us. It wasn't resolution, not yet. Too much had been broken for easy repair. But it was acknowledgement, the necessary foundation for whatever might come next. Would you like to see my new place? I offered. Bring the twins this weekend, perhaps? They nodded, relief evident in their expressions. And the cards? I asked. You mentioned they made cards. David went to the car and returned with 2 construction paper creations, covered in glitter and wobbly handwriting. We miss you, Grandma, one read. Please come back, said the other. I traced the letters with my finger, these messages from hearts too young to understand adult complexities. I've missed them too, I said, my voice thick. More than I can say. So where do we go from here? Margaret asked. I considered the question. These 2 people across from me, my son, who I'd raised, my daughter-in-law, who I'd struggled to understand, the hurt between us, the love beneath it. Forward, I said simply. Separately sometimes, together others, but with more honesty than before. It wasn't the neat resolution of fairy tales. No promises of perfect harmony or instant healing. Just the tentative first steps on a new path, its destination uncertain, but its direction clear, forward. 2 months later, we've established a new normal. Not perfect, not always comfortable, but honest in a way our relationship hadn't been before. Sunday dinners have resumed, but at my condo now, with the ocean view that still takes my breath away. The first visit was awkward, the twins racing through my carefully arranged space, David and Margaret exchanging glances at my modern furniture and colorful artwork, so different from the traditional Victorian aesthetic. It's very bright, Margaret commented, taking in the turquoise accent wall and abstract paintings. I like color now, I replied simply. I've had enough of muted tones. The twins adapted instantly, as children do. They claimed the guest bedroom as their room, rearranging the decorative pillows and requesting specific snacks for future visits. I let them, recognizing the importance of them feeling ownership in my new space. David struggled more. It doesn't feel like you, he said, standing on my balcony after dinner. It feels exactly like me, I corrected. Just not the me you're used to. He studied me, this son who had known me his entire life, yet was only now seeing me clearly. I keep expecting you to announce you're moving back to the old neighborhood. That's not happening. I know, it's just, you seem like a different person. Not different, I said. More myself. Alaska changed me further. 10 days of breathtaking wilderness, glaciers calving into turquoise waters, whales breaching beside the ship, the northern lights dancing across the sky. I sent postcards to the twins from every port, collected small souvenirs for them, took hundreds of photographs. But I didn't call home daily as I might have before, didn't worry constantly about what was happening without me, didn't feel guilty for enjoying experiences they weren't sharing. I made friends on the cruise, other solo travelers with stories of their own transformations, a widower discovering photography after his wife's death, a retired teacher hiking national parks alone after decades in classrooms, a woman who'd left a 40-year corporate career to become a pottery artist. Freedom after 70, my new friend Elaine called it, the unexpected gift of late life. When I returned, tanned and energized, the twins were fascinated by my stories. We spread maps across the dining table, tracing my journey with small fingers. I showed them photographs of bears fishing for salmon, of indigenous art, of mountains reflected in still waters. Can we come next time? Emma asked. Perhaps when you're older, I said. Some journeys are meant to be taken alone. David raised an eyebrow at this, but said nothing. Later, helping with dishes, he admitted, You seem happier. I am. Even with everything that happened between us? Because of everything that happened, I corrected. It forced changes that were long overdue. Our new arrangement has clear boundaries. I babysit once a week on Wednesday afternoons. My choice, my schedule. Sunday dinners rotate between my condo and their house. I attend the twins' school performances and sports games, but not every practice or homework session. Margaret and I have established a cautious truce. She no longer bristles when I enter her kitchen, and I've learned to ask before offering suggestions, small steps toward mutual respect. I've been thinking about what you said, Margaret told me during a rare quiet moment, about feeling invisible in your own family. I waited, letting her continue. I felt that way too, like I was just David's wife or the twins' mom, like my identity got swallowed up in roles. It happened so gradually, I said. You don't even realize it. She nodded. Watching you change, it's made me reflect on my choices, on what I'm modeling for Emma and Ethan. Especially Emma, I said, picturing my granddaughter's sharp, watchful eyes. I've started painting again, she admitted, just little watercolors. But it's something that's mine. Her voice was hesitant but honest, this fragile woman-to-woman connection, the start of something real. There have been setbacks, tension when I refused to watch the twins so they could vacation, David's resentment when I sold family furniture, my hurt when they forgot my birthday and offered excuses instead of apologies. Old habits still surface, but now we face them. You used to keep the peace at any cost, David said once. Now you just say what you think. Is that bad? He shrugged. Disorienting, but probably healthier. Last week, as he helped me pack for my Europe trip, he folded my sweaters quietly. I'm sorry we made you feel unwanted, Mom. I didn't realize how much we took for granted. I'm sorry I sold the house without telling you, I said. That was impulsive. Maybe we needed the jolt, he replied. Honestly, seeing you happy, it's worth more than any inheritance. He placed my shoes in the suitcase, thoughtful. When you disappeared, when everything changed, I was scared we'd lost you completely. You never lost me, I said. But you did lose the version of me that existed just for your convenience. He winced, then nodded. I deserve that. We all deserved better, I said. This, what we're doing now, it's harder, but it's better. He smiled faintly. It is, though I still miss the Victorian sometimes. The house, I asked. Or what it represented. Both, I guess. Security, continuity, the promise that some things never change. Change is the only constant, I said, quoting something Elaine had told me in Alaska. When did you get so philosophical? He teased. When I started living instead of just existing. He hugged me then, this grown son who still carried the echo of the boy he'd been. I'm proud of you, Mom. Is that weird to say? A little, I laughed. But I'll take it. That night after he left, I stood on my balcony watching moonlight silver the waves. In 2 days, I'd be in Paris, then Rome, then Barcelona, places I'd dreamed of but never prioritized. The twins had helped me make a scrapbook for my journey, pages ready for photographs and mementos. So you can show us everything, Emma explained, when you come back. When you come back. Not if. The assumption of return, of continuity despite distance, of belonging despite independence. Perhaps that's the heart of our rebuilding, the recognition that love doesn't require constant presence, that boundaries strengthen rather than diminish connection, that seeing each other clearly with all our flaws and needs and separate identities allows for deeper understanding than blind devotion ever could. It's not perfect. It's not always easy, but it's real in a way we've never been before. I'm writing this from a cafe in Paris. The sand flows past, gray-green under autumn skies. Church bells mark the hour, their sound floating across centuries of human joy and sorrow. My coffee has grown cold as I've been lost in thought, in memory, in gratitude for the strange and winding path that brought me here. 6 months ago, I stood in my son's living room and heard the words that would change everything. Why don't you just disappear? I did disappear, not in the way they meant, perhaps, not in silent acquiescence or wounded retreat. I disappeared as the woman they had taken for granted and reappeared as someone new, someone who belonged first and foremost to herself. The waiter refills my cup, nodding at my journal. He asks, Are you writing a book, madame? Une histoire, I reply in my limited French. A story, my story, one I never expected to live at 73. Yesterday, I climbed the steps of Montmartre, pausing often to catch my breath but refusing offers of assistance. At the top, I sat beside a street artist who sketched my portrait. You have interesting eyes, he told me. They have seen much change. If only he knew. My phone chimes with a message from David. Sunday dinner still on for when you return? The twins have a surprise for you. I type back, wouldn't miss it. I have surprises too. This easy exchange would have been unimaginable months ago, when silence stretched between us like a frozen river. Now, words flow again, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes with lingering undercurrents of hurt, but flowing nonetheless. The healing hasn't been linear. There have been setbacks, moments when old patterns reasserted themselves, when expectations clashed with my new boundaries. A tense phone call when I extended my trip by 2 weeks, Margaret's tight smile when I declined to host Thanksgiving at my condo, David's momentary resentment when I mentioned the friends I'd made in Rome. You seem to be doing fine without us, he said during one video call, his tone revealing more than his words. I am doing fine, I agreed. That doesn't mean I don't miss you. This is the balance I'm still learning. Independence without disconnection, self-determination without selfishness, love without sacrifice. Tomorrow I'll visit the Louvre. Next week I'll be in Rome. My grandchildren send me messages asking about my adventures. Margaret helped me set up an Instagram account to share photos, something I would have dismissed as frivolous before. Grandma's cooler than us now, Emma told her friends, showing them pictures of me on a gondola in Venice. Am I cooler or simply more authentic? The woman I might have been all along if I hadn't defined myself so narrowly by my relationships to others? The crisis that began with, "Why don't you just disappear?" forced me to confront questions I'd been avoiding for decades. Who am I beyond mother, grandmother, widow? What do I want from my remaining years? What constitutes a life well lived? I'm still discovering the answers, still learning to prioritize my desires without guilt, still navigating the delicate balance between self-care and family connection. Last week, I video called from the Eiffel Tower. The twins' faces filled my screen, their excitement palpable as I panned around to show them the glittering city below. Are you coming home soon? Ethan asked. In 2 weeks, I promised. Good, Emma declared. Dad doesn't make pancakes, right? I laughed. I'll make them when I visit. But not every Sunday, David interjected, coming into frame. Mom has her own life now. The simple acknowledgement warmed me more than the Parisian sun. My son recognizing my separateness, respecting it, perhaps even admiring it. Later, Margaret joined the call. We've been talking about taking the kids to Europe next summer, she said. Would you consider being our guide for part of it? The invitation represented more than travel plans. It was an acknowledgement of my experience, my newfound expertise, a recognition of value beyond the traditional grandmother role. I'd like that, I said. For part of it, you should have family time too. Your family, she replied, then added with a small smile, but I understand what you mean. This is the gift that emerged from the pain, a more honest relationship, one based on choice rather than obligation, on mutual respect rather than unspoken expectations. Sometimes the deepest wounds come from those we love most, and sometimes those wounds force us to finally put ourselves first. I keep a small photo of my family on my bedside table wherever I travel. It reminds me that relationships evolve, that standing up for yourself doesn't mean walking away, that love can survive even our worst moments. The sun is setting now, painting Paris in gold and rose. I've ordered a glass of wine, something I rarely did before, small pleasures I denied myself out of habit, out of some misguided sense that indulgence was inappropriate for a woman my age, a grandmother, a widow. A young couple at the next table leans close, whispering and laughing. I smile, remembering James and me in our early days, the passion, the plans, the certainty that our love would conquer all obstacles. In many ways, it did, but his early death left me adrift, clinging to motherhood as my only remaining identity. Would he recognize me now? This woman sipping wine alone in Paris, gray hair styled in a modern cut, wearing colors he never saw me in, making plans he's not part of? I think he would. I think he'd see the essence of me that attracted him 50 years ago, the spirit that got buried under decades of caretaking and compromise. Live fully, he told me in those final hospital days. Promise me. It took me 28 years to understand what he meant, to recognize that living fully doesn't mean living solely for others, that the greatest gift we can give those we love is our authentic selves. The waiter brings my check, and I prepare to return to my small hotel. Tomorrow brings another day of exploration, of self-discovery, of the joy that comes from choosing your own path. And in 2 weeks, I'll go home, not to the Victorian on Maple Street, but to my condo by the sea, to Sunday dinner with my family, to the delicate balance of togetherness and independence we're still learning to navigate. The irony doesn't escape me. They asked me to disappear, and in doing so, I finally became visible, to them and to myself. Sometimes disappearing isn't about vanishing from someone's life. Sometimes it's about reappearing as your true self. Did Helen's transformation resonate with you? Subscribe to our channel for daily stories of courage, reinvention, and healing family relationships at any age.